Good early morning, everybody. I'm Susan Howard, a local attorney in Brookline, specializing in domestic violence. This is the Safety Net, Brookline Interactive Group's show dedicated to domestic violence, but during COVID, we have expanded the issues we discuss. Today, we are most pleased to have a very, very special guest, Sheriff Patrick McDermott, elected in Norfolk County in 2020. Sheriff, I know you sent me a long bio, but I'm going to turn it over to you to just tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you've been involved in the nonprofit sector for a while, so please fill us in.
So thanks, Susan, and thanks to everybody in Brookline for the opportunity to come and address you on the show today and reintroduce myself a little bit to folks. As an elected official, I never claim to think that people know who I am. So despite the fact I've been in office now for 25 years in various capacities. So just to give you a little background, I'm from the city of Quincy. I grew up here. I became a lawyer, graduated from Suffolk Law School back in 2000.
Yay.
Always good, always good. I think we have do we have a BC connection too?
Yes, we do. I have my PhD from BC and you went to BC, right?
I'm an undergrad at Boston College. So that's that.
So
that
you're an eagle.
My early affiliation with Brookline is I lived on the border of Brighton and Brookline back at Boston College back in the day. So, and I also post college graduation, I was the district supervisor for the Boston Globe, and I managed all of Brookline. So back in the 90s, if you were a subscriber to the Boston Globe,
yes,
there's a very high likelihood that I was by your house in all of Brookline at some point or another over the course of my career at the Boston Globe early on before I jumped into elected office. But yeah, so I ended up, I became a city councilor in Quincy, served in the late 90s and while I was attending law school. Then worked over at the Registry of Deeds with the Register of Deeds, Paul Harold. Worked there for a couple of years, and there was an opportunity to run for Register of Probate for Norfolk County, which is basically the clerk magistrate's position for the probate and family court in Canton. And so I was blessed to by the voters in Norfolk County, including Brookline, to serve 18 years as the Register of Probate for Norfolk County. We could certainly, as the topic here today, I spent those 18 years focusing on access to justice issues, specifically working with families on family law issues. And we had a lot of issues dealing with domestic violence, mental health issues, et cetera, during my tenure at the probate and family court, which really gave me a solid foundation to focus on a run for sheriff last year. Sheriff Bellotti, who was elected in 2016, stepped aside to take another position and left a vacancy in the office. So the vacancy statute allowed the governor to appoint an acting sheriff until the next state election, which was last year. So I was able to run and win last year to fill out Mike Bellotti's term. So that turns the corner to it's a little 2-year term. So I have to basically make sure that the voters in Norfolk County know that we're doing what we need to do to move the issues forward so that 2022, all the sheriffs are up for re-election. So I want to prove to everybody that they made the right choice last year.
Sheriff, so you have an election coming up, am I correct?
So yeah, that all of the sheriffs in Massachusetts will be running for re-election next year in 2022. So
when does it start, Sheriff? What month does it start?
The election, well, it pretty much starts when, I guess in theory, when signatures are available, which is usually in February. The Secretary of State usually indicates when those papers are available, when you can file your papers with Bill Galvin's office, and I intend to be one of the first in line.
I'm sure you do, and you were also a legislative aide, weren't you?
Yeah, I jumped into I was an aide up the State House for a couple of years with then Representative Bellotti in the House, Representative Rogers from Norwood. I was his aide for a while, and then I went over to the Senate side, worked with then Senator Morrissey, now District Attorney Morrissey.
District Attorney, a good friend of both of ours. That's terrific.
Absolutely.
And,
so I
you're
get
very
the
active.
in that.
I'm sorry, you're active in the Norfolk, or you were active in the Norfolk Bar Association?
So yeah, after becoming an attorney, I had very limited practicing because I was focusing on my government work, but I did work with the Bar Association of Norfolk County. I became its president in 2012. Focused on building our membership, building learning opportunities for our attorneys, networking opportunities, and we built the organization up to be quite a force to be reckoned with.
Absolutely, I'm a member. It's fabulous. They do a
Awesome.
great
Thank you.
job. And you're a 30-year rider in the Pan Mass Challenge. Good for you.
Absolutely. I lost my mom to cancer back in 1989. I was 19 years old. I was a junior at Boston College. My mom had been diagnosed with cancer a couple of years before that. So she battled for 2 years. And when I lost her in 89, my brother who's my younger brother, when we both graduated from college, we both wanted to kind of keep her memory alive, and doing the Pan Mass Challenge, which is a fantastic organization,
Yes.
raising millions and millions of dollars for the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. It gives us an opportunity to keep her memory alive, doing a great thing. And we feel as though we're saving lives.
You are, no question. And also, what is the Boston Archdiocesan Choir School? Are you a singer? You are.
So I'm a jack of all trades here. So just in case the day job doesn't work out, I can become a lounge singer in downtown Brookline somewhere. But no, I graduated. I attended the Boston Archdiocesan Choir School, which is, I think it's called the St. Paul's Boys Choir over in Cambridge. When I was from 5th to 8th grade. And it's a focused school for boys with musical talents and vocal talents specifically. And so I was classically trained as a young man. Back then I was a soprano, and fortunately I was able to carry the vocal techniques forward as a baritone. So I do from time to time get to entertain crowds, usually around Christmas time, around St. Patrick's holidays, and certainly whenever I'm available, national anthems, I'll do whatever it takes. So
that's great. We're going to remember that, Sheriff.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to jump right into your being sheriff. And I know that you've sent me some issues you want to discuss, but I have one question, and it's an easy question. I'm not sandbagging you at all. What do you find the biggest challenge of being sheriff in Norfolk County?
So I think the biggest challenge, I think right now has always been the focus on the recidivism rate, which is basically the revolving door in our criminal justice system. I think that, for years, folks talk about investing in cutting down the recidivism rate, yet I have never seen a good plan put forth on how to actually do that. I've advanced the issue of rehabilitation and reentry as the sole focus, as what we do in the sheriff's office. And if we invest in our justice-involved individuals, especially in the sheriff's office, because we deal with inmates that are serving time up to 2.5 years in the House of Correction, which basically kind of envelops there's no such thing as a lower level crime. Crimes are crimes, especially when you get convicted and are sentenced. But at least in the House of Correction, we have a shot at rehabilitating these individuals. So we don't have sentenced inmates that are dealing with major crimes of murder or armed burglary or robbery, but we have an opportunity focusing on individuals that have a lot of substance abuse issues, mental health issues, give them the services that they need. And we believe reentry starts on day one when you enter our facility. It's not good enough to wait until a month or a week before you're released to figure out what you're going to do after incarceration. So my goal is to basically focus on that reentry component. That's the biggest challenge right now, especially with COVID. It's been very difficult on bringing our vendors back to teach the inmates and actively do the programming that we want to do. But that's going to be the challenge moving forward, is to making sure that we put these people back into the communities of such as Brookline better than we've received them. And I'm not confident that has happened all that often over the course of time. So I'm going to give a shot at it. We're going to start doing metrics-based analysis so that we track individuals. And one of the things that the sheriff's office have not done in the past that I think we should do, and this is going to involve a trust factor between our inmates as well as the communities. We want to do post-incarceration tracking with these men and women, just to follow up. Not that we're looking to kind of track them in terms of watching out everything that they do, but we want to make sure that they are succeeding on following up on the things that we started in the sheriff's office.
Sheriff, what is a recovery panel, and how does one help you on it? As an attorney, I would be willing to help.
So the recovery panels were something that we put forth because we were in the middle of COVID. We kind of we captivated what we used the Zoom technology to kind of bring the services into the facility via technology, and we put together these panels that included our nonprofit groups. We brought together government agencies, counselors, as well as formerly incarcerated individuals who had substance abuse issues. And we brought those people together. We had over 30 people usually sign up for those Zoom recovery meetings. They're one of the most popular things we do. And we always welcome new community partners to come in and give talks, especially on issues. We talk about domestic violence as a big issue, and we do have individuals at the House of Correction who have anger problems, who have had domestic violence issues with either their spouse or their girlfriends. And so we realize that those recovery panels aren't just for substance abuse, but they're also for people that might be struggling with anger issues or some issues relative to domestic violence. So we'd even welcome that opportunity as well.
Great. So I see that you have an 8-week domestic relationship course. Could you just give us a brief overview of what that is? It for girlfriends? Is it for parents? Is it for wives? Is it for what is it for? Who is it for?
So it's an 8-week program that's designed to help offenders. So it's the men that we have in our program right now to examine, evaluate, and explore their thoughts and beliefs that play out in their domestic relationships. And it gives them the education to develop an alternative, non-abusive, non-controlling, and non-violent behavior techniques. And it's a lot. As I say those words, I know it's a lot easier said than done, and it's a real work in progress to some of these individuals. And I would be remiss if I didn't reflect upon, sadly, that the recent tragedy in Franklin, where a woman was tragically murdered by her ex-husband. And these are the issues that's just an absolute tragedy. 2 kids, and obviously that's a situation that got out of control that somehow nobody got a hold of in advance. I know that was an issue going through the probate and family court with a divorce. It's a tragedy that fell through the cracks. That individual, that household that was facing domestic violence issues, somehow we weren't able to do something about that before the tragedy happened.
Sheriff, there was a restraining order in that case, wasn't there? There were a couple of them.
Yeah.
I'm in 30 years of doing this work, and I defend batterers because I don't think we have enough resources right now to assist batterers. I don't even care. I don't care if you admit, just stop it. Stop it. And that's one of the problems I have with our training and our programs that we have for batterers. I like the fact that you're opened it up and you're not forcing them into a hole where they have to admit something. Just stop the behavior. And I think we can, if violence is learned, it can be unlearned. And I like your approach. Positive parenting skills, yes. Positive relationship skills, yes. Victim service advocates, where do you get them?
So we have them in our facility. We work certainly in partnership too with the district attorney. So the district attorney has victim witness advocates. I know I partnered with then District Attorney Bill Keating, who's now a congressman, and now followed that up with District Attorney Morrissey with his victim witness advocates. We did that in the probate and family court, and we certainly want to make sure that victims are apprised of what's going on with the perpetrator in the cases of the men that we're doing care and custody with, so that they are apprised when an individual might be released. And certainly that we want the toughest thing, you mentioned restraining orders, and I always found it frustrating because restraining orders, they are civil in nature, so there's no until there's a violation of a restraining order. It's only then when it becomes criminal in nature, where incarceration is an option with some things. And I think when you talk about services, we're not doing enough preventative opportunities. And I think that the courts need to focus on, when it comes to a restraining order, if there's credible evidence that a restraining order ought to issue, which a lot of times they issue the courts will issue them fairly frequently without much follow-up. And I think that some of the more heinous evidence of reasons why restraining orders are issued there should be some kind of preventative measures taken during those situations when it is just a civil case, when we have an opportunity to kind of work with both the victims as well as the perpetrators to make sure that these things don't happen again, so that they don't become criminal, they don't become a situation where an individual gets incarcerated. And so those services are vital. So I hate the fact that we're being reactionary, at least in the sheriff's office, because we do advocate for the victims, but unfortunately we've lost the battle because they've already become victims and
Exactly.
incarceration happens.
Exactly. And when you talk about restraining orders, I've also always felt that maybe some counseling should be built into the restraining order, even if it's civil, that there should be some kind of a mandatory requirement, 6-8 weeks, where the person who it's against has to go through some kind of training, whether they want it or not necessarily emerge or the programs that we have for the court, but just something that keeps reminding them, hey, listen, you violate, you're going to be in the big house. I don't know. That's just me.
We have programs in so many different other civil matters. I know that when I decided to get married, I had to go through my marriage training with my wife before we were able to get married in the Catholic Church. There was the pre-Cana program,
right,
to understand relationships. When you get divorced, you need to take parenting classes.
Right.
To make sure that you understand the relationships in terms of how to be a good parent with each other. So there's no reason why there should not be some kind of requirement when there is evidence of domestic violence that some courses must be mandated, some training, counseling, and it can be certainly for the couple in general, because that relationship doesn't necessarily go away. I mean, people,
right,
whether it's a marital relationship with this domestic violence, or whether it's a boyfriend girlfriend situation. I mean, people live in a community together. They have to understand the consequences of their actions and realize how to develop better relationships or safer relationships
right,
with each other. So,
do you think the sheriff's office could get involved with something like that, or would they?
I'd be happy to. No, I'd love to get involved with it, because part of it, when I campaigned for sheriff, but my theme of the campaign was prevention, intervention, education, and hope. And that was something that we talked about, especially the prevention piece. If we can advocate for programs to prevent crimes from happening before they escalate, then we've survived. So I work directly with local communities, certainly with our district attorney, our local chiefs of police, but always the nonprofit groups, our school systems, to kind of educate people on some of these issues. And, we work with our youth a lot on programs based upon responsible decisions and leadership issues, how to have successful relationships, especially we talk with our teenagers in the high schools about that. And so we're trying to get to that preventative piece before anything escalates. And if we can,
like Franklin, right, Sheriff? Like Franklin.
Exactly. And these are all, I hate when things become case studies, because it's good that we study these issues, but I hope that we learn from them and do something about them,
to prevent them.
So, and I have a great relationship with Dove, which is Domestic Violence Ended. It's a program that was founded out of the city of Quincy and represents all of Norfolk counties and works with victims, as well as with those that are offenders in domestic violence. So to do
that's good to hear.
So that partnership with Dove, and there's many others, Jane Doe and other groups.
There's
around.
Reverse Patterns, which just started.
Yes.
Which I'd love to talk to you about. It has a different focus than the others, mainly on kids who are affected. You have a program with the New England Wildlife Center.
So this is fantastic.
This is great.
I've lived in the city of Quincy all my life, and I didn't realize that one town over in Weymouth is a wonderful wildlife center that caters towards wild animals, to sort of exotic animals. It's not your typical zoo. I went there for a tour a couple of months ago, and I was fascinated with the kind of things that they're doing at the New England Wildlife Center, and they are so committed to helping people, especially on our side, the rehabilitation side. So we wanted to make sure that, and one of the things that we don't have in Norfolk County is we don't house our female inmates yet.
Next question, Sheriff.
We'll lead into this issue too. We wanted to make sure that we at least recognize that we do have female populations that are sentenced to the Norfolk County care and custody. But even though they're currently being housed at the Suffolk County House of Correction, we wanted to at least start a program bringing those women back into their communities. And this opportunity, working with New England Wildlife, it's a pilot program for female justice individuals who are housed at the Suffolk County House of Correction. It's based off of a partnership that gives offenders the opportunity to get training in caring for animals and to earn their vet tech certification. So this is one of those opportunities to get them back out to the community. We bus them to the facility, they get trained, they work with the animals. The staff there are absolutely fantastic. So I'm very proud of this affiliation we have with New England Wildlife Center in Weymouth. And I'm hoping that this gives a little bit of an opportunity, just that door open for our female offenders, that this gives them a little hope as well.
Sheriff, any chance at all that female offenders would be housed at the Norfolk County House of Correction, low-level offenders, if there is such a thing? I mean, that's something I've been screaming about for 30 years. Why should a third shoplifting go to the state prison? I don't get it.
Yeah, it's unacceptable. And I said that when I ran for sheriff. We've actually looked towards figuring out the best practices in terms of how we bring back the female offenders. And like anything else, we have 24 females that are currently technically under the care and custody of the sheriff's office.
What does that mean, Sheriff? Excuse me, I'm going to jump in. What does that mean, under the care and custody? Are they at Framingham, but they're under your jurisdiction, or?
They're technically, so they're within the Norfolk County Court's jurisdictions. They're either being held for trial in a pretrial situation, or they have been convicted of a crime and are serving out a sentence. So those female individuals, both the pretrial and the sentence, are currently being housed at the Suffolk County House of Correction, which is not a state facility, it is still a county facility. Sheriff Tompkins and I have a partnership in terms of that. He has the staff and he has the medical units to focus on the female population. We need to build towards doing that in Norfolk County, and I want to do it for not just those that are the offenders, those that are in justice involved individuals, but mostly for their families too. I think that part of the rehabilitation cycle has to include an individual's family and loved ones. And when we're dealing with women, there's a lot of the women that certainly have children. I want to focus on reunification efforts. There's nothing worse than a child without his mother, her mother, and that's very difficult. And so we need to make sure that first and foremost we have the staff in place. We need to have the facility in place. We do have options available to us in Norfolk. I've actually had the opportunity to tour other facilities that work with a female population. I was very impressed with what they're doing up in Middlesex. Sheriff Katusian has a dedicated separate facility on campus at the Middlesex House of Correction, which is just for females, low-level offenders. There's a couple that are serving like major sentences though. There's one woman I spoke with. She's serving an 8-year sentence. So these are not the lower tiered crimes, but one of the things we always talk about, a lot of the women that are going through these things, a lot of them are facing domestic violence issues. A lot of them were convicted based upon domestic violence issues and to drugs, assault and battery issues. And so we just need to build a program. I'm not competent yet. I'm working towards that full competence in terms of how best to work on practices for our female population. I want to make sure we do it right. And usually any programs I like to get involved with, I want to do it the best. And we're going to make sure best practices, we're pulling things in from national, throughout the nation as to what best practices are for our female population, how we can serve them best. And it might be a regional project too. That's the other thing. I don't want to say that we exclusively do it for Norfolk, but we'd like to bring them out of Suffolk, at least possibly put together a program with our colleagues in Bristol and Plymouth County to find a regional facility we might be able to pool our resources on.
Sheriff, wouldn't that just be another Framingham prison if it were regional? I mean, I'm really very focused on Norfolk County because that's where I grew up and that's where I practice mainly. I certainly don't want to see my clients sent to Bristol and then the kids can't get to see them and blah, 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 blah. Do you have room at the House of Correction to build, and do you need funding? What is the main obstacle?
Well, funding is always the main, and it is a little bit of the politics of what's going on in Beacon Hill. And luckily, I've had many conversations with at least the Norfolk County delegation as well as with the leadership in the House and the Senate. There is right now kind of a pause, a timeout on
Yeah.
any building of new prisons, which I tend to agree with. We do have our facilities, including Norfolk's House of Correction. We do have space. Our inmate population right now is right around 300. We were built for 306, so technically, one would say, "Wow, we are at capacity." But we've housed in the past up to 700 inmates, which was way overcrowded. So let's not go back to that. But we currently have our alternative center, which is next door to the House of Correction. We do have some space, which the prior sheriff did do. He started working towards a female unit in that facility, which so we at least have the space there. But now you have to really build it out. And we would need a significant amount of money to build it out, not just physically the physical plant, but you also need
But staff.
to have that staff,
Staff.
and specifically the medical staff. Our medical staff are fantastic, but there are different medical needs for females, obviously, than there would be
Right,
for our male
right.
population. And then the programming, that's the other thing. We want to focus on that programming, and there is a cost with that as well. But we should not let cost dictate, why we should or should not do something. To me, if it's the right
Right.
thing to do, you find a way to do it. And that's kind of our attitude.
That's a good attitude, Sheriff. One last question, because we don't have much time. How has COVID impacted your plans, the jail, the House of Correction, the inmates? I know it's had an impact, and quite frankly, in the last couple of weeks, all I say is every day I pick up a paper, I listen to the news, there's another horrendous domestic violence incident. What is going on? I don't understand.
It's awful, and I think COVID has a lot to do with what's going on with domestic violence. I think with people housed, during the actual crisis last year, when people were living in the house together, I think people's stress levels got through the roof. But in our facility, we've been blessed. We only had one major outbreak this past February, and since then, we have very strict plans in place to make sure we still
Good.
live in a congregate housing setting. So masking is required by our inmates and our staff. We have a 92% vaccination rate amongst our staff. Our inmates are, I forget the exact amount, but we just had this past Sunday a panel come in to talk about vaccination and the importance of hygiene. And so we've actually been blessed in Norfolk not to have any problems. I do shout out my friends in Middlesex and Essex, who both of those counties lost a corrections officer
Right.
to COVID
Oh,
recently.
very sad.
Back to back, Essex 2 weeks ago, and then this week a Middlesex County corrections officer lost his life to complications due to COVID. So we've been blessed, but we consistently advocate to making sure people remain safe. We have our protocols in place. We have a few positive tests that are now in quarantine. But luckily, there has been no further outbreak. But with the oncoming of the Omicron variant, I think that we're going to probably see an increase in cases. We have our plans in place that if we have to lock down our facility for a short period of time, we will do so, specifically to keep our inmate population safe.
Right.
Those are the most
Good.
vulnerable because they have
And
no
your
choice.
staff. And your
Yeah,
staff.
the staff need to make sure they at least have a choice and they know how to self-care
Right.
and make sure that. But the inmates,
Maybe Sheriff, as in New York City and Mayor Wu, maybe they shouldn't have a choice. I don't know, and I'm not telling you what to do. And
Yeah.
I don't want to get political, but I teach in a hospital. I teach anorexic kids in addition to being a lawyer, and I'm seeing a great relationship between early trauma and domestic violence. I never realized it in 30 years. But in the last minute, is there anything you want our viewers to know or me to know? Put it out there, Sheriff. It's great that you came today.
And lastly, you just mentioned that we're actually starting a program called the Handle with Care program, which is designed. It was piloted down in Plymouth County, but it's designed to focus on trauma that kids experience early on, to invest in kids who experience trauma, to give partnerships with the schools and the counselors to make sure that those kids are given the attention that they need. But we can certainly explore that as we roll it out in Norfolk County. I'd love to come back on, but to check out
Yes,
our program.
absolutely. I have some resources for you. I really
Beautiful.
do. Trauma.
And that's
I would
what
love
I
you
want
to
to
talk
do.
about it.
I would love to explore more opportunities and to figure out how we can help those kids that are experiencing trauma, especially the domestic violence. But certainly anybody that wants to chime in with us to figure out what's going on, please visit our website. It's norfolksheriff.com. Follow us on all the social media platforms. If you go to @NorfolkSheriff, you will find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Those are the day-to-day updates that we get out to people, whether it's a scam alert or some of the things we're doing in the community or new programs we're rolling out. So we want to have a solid relationship with each and every community we represent. And social media is the way to keep in contact on a consistent basis. So please follow us, like us, and certainly give us a shout out anytime that you have a question or concern, or you have an idea, because I'm a big fan of not research and development. I like rip off and duplicate. If somebody's doing something
I love
successful,
it. I
bring
love
it
it.
my way.
Sheriff Patrick McDermott, thank you so much. Norfolk County Sheriff, we appreciate your coming today, and you will come back soon. Signing off for the Safety Net, this is Susan Howards. Have a safe and healthy holiday. Bye all.
Thank you.